Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, 27a of Maseches Taanis, and we are 4 lines down from the top where it says with the 2 dots, Eloheim Amados. It's a quote from the Mishnah. The Mishnah on the previous page had said that, first we said there are certain times of the year when the Kohanim Duchin, they do the Birkas Kohanim, the priestly blessing, every tefillah, every prayer throughout that day. And one of the examples was the days of the Ma'amados. The Ma'amados were the people in charge, from non-Leviim, non-Kohanim. They were Yisraelim in charge of davening for a carbon, their offering be accepted, and there were some we saw in the Mishnah who remained in their towns and davened there and fasted. So on days that they were fasting, then those were days where they would duchen even at mincha because they were fasting and there was no problem being drunk. That was something we discussed last week more. The Mishnah had said, if you want to look back at the Mishnah, if you have it, Chavav Amar Aleph, if not, just listen in. It says that Eloheim Ma'amados, these are the Ma'amados. And then it sort of digresses and it says, Lefi shenemar, because the verse says, Tzavas b'nei Yisrael, command the children of Israel. And what are you to command them as karbani lachmi? It's actually skipping a few words, but my carbon, my meal, God says that basically it's talking about the daily offering, the daily tamid. And the Mishnah asked, V'chiheich karbano shel adam kra b'hu eino omed al gabav. How could someone's carbon be brought? He's not there. Because if this carbon is representing all parts of the Jewish people, then you need representation from all sections of the Jewish people. You need some Yisraels there. So hiskinu neviim arishonim. So therefore the Nevi'im, the early prophets, they enacted that there would be Esrim v'arba mishmaros, 24 watches. Al kol mishmar haya maimad b'Yerushalayim shel Kohanim shel Levim v'shel Yisraelim. As part of each of these watches, there was a group in Jerusalem from Kohanim, from Levim, and from Yisraelim. Higia zman ha-mishmar la'alos, when it was time for that mishmar, that watch to go up. Kohanim and Levim olim l'Yerushalayim. The Kohanim and Levim would all go to Yerushalayim. The Yisrael and the Yisraelim, so there were some in Yerushalayim, but there were others who remained in their towns. Sheboso mishmar miskansing larein, they would gather in their towns, v'karim ma'aseh bereshis, and they would read about the creation of the world, and they would fast, etc. So the Gemara that we're going to learn now is going to be discussing those lines of the Mishnah, and after it quotes a little bit, it says Eloheim Ma'amados, these are the Ma'amados, these are these non-priestly watches, the Yisrael watch. And then we had this interesting language, is these are the Ma'amados, or some translate it as what are the Ma'amados. And then it says, because it says Tzavas b'nei Yisrael, so the Gemara says, My Kamar. What's it saying? It asked the question to answer it, really. It kind of digressed. It said, who are the Ma'amados, or these are the Ma'amados. Then it said, because it says, so what's going on here? So the Gemara explains, Hachi Kamar, this is what the Mishnah means to say. Eloheim Ma'amados, what were the Ma'amados, or these are the Ma'amados. Uma tam tiknu Ma'amados. Then it digresses, it's true, and we have to fill in the words. First we'll tell you what's the reason that they enacted Ma'amados. And to that it explained, Lefi shenemar, because the verse says, Tzavas b'nei Yisrael, command the children of Israel, v'amarta aleim, and say to them, Es karbani lachmi leishai, my bread, my meal carbon, it wasn't bread, it's a carbon, it's an animal, but my meal carbon, le'ishai, for my fire. And then we explain, V'heich karbano shel adam krab hu eino omed al gabav, how could someone's carbon be brought and he's not there, and this is the carbon for all of Israel. So therefore the early prophets enacted there should be 24 watches. Al kol mishmar hayamaimad b'Yerushalayim shel Kohanim shel Levim shel Yisraelim. For each mishmar, for each watch, there was a group in Yerushalayim of Kohanim, Levim, and Yisraelim. Higiyas my mishmar la'alos, when the time came for your mishmar to go up, Kohanim Levim olim l'Yerushalayim, the Kohanim and Levim will go up to Yerushalayim, etc., etc. But what the Gemara is explaining is that before it explained what the ma'amados were, the Mishnah digressed and said, and what's the reason for the ma'amados? And once it explained, the reason is because we need representation. This is the carbon that's for all of the Jewish people. We need representation from all the Jewish people. And then it explained exactly what the Maimad was, this group of people who, some will go to Yerushalayim, some will remain in the cities and daven there and fast, etc. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the Mishmaros in general, these watches of the Kohanim and Levim. By watch, what we mean not just the guards, but the rotation of Kohanim who would serve in the Beis HaMikdash. There was a rotation of 24 groups. Each one would serve for 2 weeks out of the year. And the Brisa explains as follows. Tana Rabban, and the rabbis taught, Esrim Barba Mishmaros Hayu Be'eretz Yisrael. There were 24 Mishmaros in the land of Israel, Ushtem Esrei B'Yericho, and 12 in Yericho. It sounds like there were 24 plus 12 for a total of 36. Ask the Mishnah, ask the Gemara, Shtem Esrei B'Yericho, there were 12 in Yericho, Nefisha Lahu Tuva, that's way too many. Meaning we know there were only 24, so what do we mean there's 24 and 12? That's 36. Ella, so rather, Shtem Esrei Mehen B'Yericho. 12 of the 24 were in Yericho, or would go to Yericho, as we'll see it. Meaning, as they explained, Higiyas man mishmar laos, when it was your turn for your mishmar to go up, Chatzia mishmar haya'olam Eretz Yisrael Yerushalayim, half of the mishmar would go up from Eretz Yisrael to Yerushalayim, from wherever they were in Israel to Yerushalayim. The Chatzia mishmar haya'ola, our Gemara says Mi Yericho, Rashi's version seems to be Li Yericho, and half would go to Yericho. Why? In order to provide food, water and food for their brothers in Yerushalayim. So, so when it says that there were 12 in Yericho, what it really means is that there were 24 mishmaros, and half of the total number of mishmaros would go to Yericho. What that really means is half of each individual mishmar would go to Yericho. So when it was your turn for your mishmar, for your group of Kohanim to go serve in the Beis HaMikdash, actually half of them wouldn't be serving on any given day. They would be in Yericho, which seemed to be like the preparation station. It was nearby to Yerushalayim, and they could provide food and drink from there for their brethren who were serving in the Beis HaMikdash. So half would not actually be in Yerushalayim, half would be in Yericho preparing food. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Shmuel. Kohanim v'Levim v'Yisraelim me'akving es hakarban. All three groups were necessary to be present for the karban to be kosher, to be good, and to be valid, and right, each one was essential. Kohanim, Levim, Yisraelim, ma'akving es hakarban. They're all essential to the karban. If they aren't present doing their job, then the karban's no good. B'masnisa Tana, in a Brisa we learned, Reb Shimon Elazar Omer, Reb Shimon Elazar says, Kohanim, Levim, uklei shir ma'akving es hakarban. Kohanim, Levim, and some have a girsa Yisraelim as well, but what he's adding is, and klei shir. Klei shir means instruments are essential to the karban, for the karban to be good. So the first opinion said you need Kohanim, Levim, and Yisraelim. The second one says you need Kohanim, Levim, and Yisraelim, and you need instruments there. What does that mean? So the Gemara says, The Gemara says, "B'mai kamipalgi." What's this argument about whether you need instruments or not? So we know that you need shira, that the Leviim would sing shira. The Leviim would sing over the karban, and that was ma'akiv, that was essential. But what they're arguing about is the following: Mar savar ikar shira b'peh. The first opinion holds that the main singing is with the mouth, and therefore you don't really need instruments. So the first opinion just said that Kohanim, Levim, and Yisraelim are essential, but you don't need the instruments, because that's not... You can have shira, you can have real song without instruments. Umar savar ikar shira b'kli. But the other opinion holds that no, that ikar shira is b'kli, that you can only really, to have shira, which you need for the karban, you need to have instruments. And therefore the second opinion said that not only do you need the Levim there, but you need them to have instruments to play as well. Amar Rav Chama bar Guria Amar Rav. Rav Chama bar Guria said, in the name of Rav, Moshe tiking l'Am Yisrael shmona mishmaros. Moshe Rabbeinu originally established 8 mishmaros, 8 teams to rotate in serving in the Mishkan. Arba me Elazar, v'dala me Isamar. 4 from Elazar, the son of Aaron, from his family, and 4 from Isamar, the son of Aaron. Right? As we know, Aaron had 4 sons, none of them died, and it was the families of Elazar and Isamar and their descendants who would serve in the Mishkan, in the Beis HaMikdash, and Moshe originally established 8 groups on rotation, 4 from Elazar and 4 from Isamar. Ba Shmuel, when Shmuel HaNavi came along years later, he came along, right? He made it into 16 different groups. And then, Ba David v'hamidon al esrim v'arba. And eventually David came along, and it was David HaMelech who made it to 24. Shenemar, as the pasuk says in Divrei Hayamim, it says, Bishnas arba'im malchus David, nidrshu v'yimtza bahem gibur yachayel v'yazer gilad. That in the 40th year of the kingship of David, they sought out and they found mighty men in Yazer Gilad. The point, says the Maharsha here, actually is the preceding psukim spoke about the 24 mishmaros. Then it says in the 40th year of David. So the Gemara understands that those 24 mishmaros were only established in the 40th year of David. So according to this memra of Rav Chama bar Guria in the name of Rav, Moshe made 8 mishmaros, 8 groups to rotate, 8 groups of Kohanim. Shmuel HaNavi doubled it to 16, and David HaMelech made it to 24. The Gemara asks a contradiction from a Brisa. Meisvei Moshe tiking l'Am Yisrael shmona mishmaros. Moshe, the Brisa says, established 8, so that so far is consistent. Arba me Elazar v'arba me Isamar, 4 from Elazar, 4 from Isamar. Ba David u'Shmuel v'hamidon al esrim v'arba. David and Shmuel came along and made it 24. It sounds like it was David and Shmuel together who made it 24. Not that Shmuel made 16 and David made 24, but David and Shmuel made 24. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, another pasuk in Divrei Hayamim, it says, Hema Yisad David Shmuel Haroeh be'emunasam. They were set by David and Shmuel, Shmuel Haroeh, Shmuel the seer, be'emunasam, I guess in their set jobs. It was talking about different assignments in the Beis HaMikdash when the people returned to Eretz Yisrael after the Galus. So it talks about the different families and what jobs they took, and it says that they were it references this idea that there was an establishment of positions by David and Shmuel, and I guess because it puts them together, we assume that the final establishment was by both of them, that 24 was set up by both of them. That's a contradiction, because we just said, Rav Chama bar Guria said in the name of Rav, that Shmuel made it 16 and David made it 24. But this Brisa seems to say that they both make it 24. So the Gemara explains Hachi Kamar. Now this is what the Brisa is saying. Miyisodo shel David u'Shmuel haramasi hamidum al esrim ve'arba. So there's actually different ways to read this line. Rashi brings two explanations. One actually reads it that it only says it about Shmuel. Miyisodo shel Shmuel haramasi. From the foundation that Shmuel had set up, they made it into 24. In other words, it's saying Shmuel didn't make it 24. What it's saying is that David made it 24 based on the foundation that Shmuel Hanavi had made. Shmuel Hanavi made it 16. And when it says that David and Shmuel made it to 24, and then it quotes this pasuk that they established it, what it's really saying is that Shmuel Hanavi laid the foundation that David built on. So in a way they did it together. The other way to learn it is without changing the girsa, using our girsa, but it's along the same lines, that together David and Shmuel laid the foundation, set it to be 24, but really they did it in steps, that Shmuel and Avi did 16, and David bumped it up to 24. So that's one version. That's the opinion of Rav and the brisa that backs it up. Now the Gemara says Tanya Yidach. We have another brisa that teaches otherwise. The other brisa teaches Moshe tikkun lahem liyisrael sheish esrei mishmaros. That Moshe originally didn't make 8; he made 16. Shmona me'Elazar, Shmona me'Isamar. 8 from Elazar and 8 from Isamar. Ukishiravu b'nei Elazar al b'nei Isamar. And eventually, when the descendants of Elazar were greater than the descendants of Isamar in numbers, so then it didn't make sense to keep it even 8 and 8. Chalkum v'midum al esrim ve'arba. They divided them up and made them into 24. So it sounds like they only divided up Elazar because they were so many. So originally you had 8 and 8, and now you get it up to 24 because now you have 16 and 8. 16 from Elazar and 8 from Isamar. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, it's a pasuk also in Divrei Yamim. It seems to state this. Vayimtu b'nei Elazar rabim l'rashi hagivarim min b'nei Isamar, and it turned out, and it was found that the b'nei Elazar were more than the b'nei Isamar, than the people of Isamar. Vayichalkum l'b'nei Elazar rashim l'beis avo shisha asar, and they divided the children of Elazar with different heads of each household into 16. And Isamar was divided into 8. So originally, right, they were each 8, and now they further divided Elazar into 16, and now you have 24. Ve'omer, and it also says in a pasuk, also in Divrei Yamim, it says, Beis Av Echad Achuz Elazar. One family was, let's say, grabbed by Elazar. The Achuz Isamar was grabbed by Isamar. In other words, the implication of this verse, we're bringing another verse to back up this idea that originally they were both 8 and then Elazar became 16, because it says Beis Av Echad Achuz Elazar. One Beis Av family was grabbed by Elazar, and the Gemara understands the equivalent of what they had was grabbed by them. So they had 8, and now they sort of grabbed more, they got more groups, and they ended up with 16. But then it says the Achuz Isamar. What was already grabbed was grabbed by Isamar. I mean, they already had 8, that's what they grabbed, that existing 8, they kept that existing 8. So that's how you end up there. Elazar had 16, and Isamar remained. They grabbed what they had already grabbed. They established and remained with the original 8. Now the Gemara wants to know, why do I need 2 psukim? The first pasuk seems to state clearly that when the people of Elazar were too many, so they divided them up. They were 16, and Isamar was 8. Now why do I need the second pasuk that Elazar grabbed what they grabbed, what they already had, to get to 16 now, and Isamar grabbed only what they had already grabbed, which means they remained at 8. Why do I need that second pasuk? Ma'va Omer, what's the second verse for? It's as follows: V'chitema, because you might say, Ki echid nefishi b'nei Elazar, hachinam nefishi b'nei Isamar. If you read only the first verse, which says that Isamar was many, so now they were 16. Elazar was many, so now they became 16, and Isamar was 8. You might think that Isamar also grew, and they were originally both 4. That Ki echid nefishi b'nei Elazar, hachinam nefishi b'nei Isamar. Just like Elazar grew, so too Isamar grew. Shmona meikara arba havu. And what was now 8 was originally 4. And it's like the other brisa, right? The first brisa that we learned, and the opinion of Rav was that Moshe originally made 4 and 4. But this brisa said, no, Moshe originally made 8 and 8. And it quoted 2 verses. Now why do I need the second verse? Because if I only had the first verse, so I might say, the first verse says that Elazar became 16 and Isamar was 8. I might say they were both originally 4. They both grew. Elazar became 16 and Isamar became 8, but they were originally both 4. That's what I might have said. Tashma, coming here, I have another pasuk. Beisav echad achuz le'Elazar, ve'achuz achuz le'Isamar. That the implication is that Isamar was achuz. They grabbed what they already grabbed. They kept what they had. So they didn't grow from 4 to 8 because they grabbed what they grabbed. They remained with what they had. So it must be that they were always 8. That's the Brice's proof that Moshe must have established 8 and 8, not 4 and 4. Asks the Gemara, Tiyufta to Rav Chama bar Guria. This Brisa is a Brisa, it's authoritative. It's a Tiyufta, it's a knockout, it's a final contradiction to Rav Chama bar Guria, the name of Rav, who said that Moshe started with 4 and 4. This Brisa is saying 8 and 8. Can't argue on a Brisa if you're an Amora. So Amar l'chara, Rav Chama bar Guria, Rav Chama bar Guria would say to you, Tanai, no, it's a machlokas Tanayim. V'ana da'amri ki hai Tanar. I say like the other Tana, da'amar Shmona, who said 8. Because we have a Brisa that backs him up as well. It's true, this Brisa says that that Moshe originally established 16, 8 and 8. So that seems to be a contradiction to Rav Chama bar Guria, in the name of Rav, who said that Moshe established 8, 4 and 4. So he'll say, no, I also have a Brisa to back me up. We also learned that Brisa. That was the Meisvei. The Gemara asked a contradiction from a Brisa. But that Brisa said clearly that Moshe established originally just 8, 4 from each family of Elazar and Isamar. Tana Rabbanan. The rabbis taught. We're 2 lines from the bottom. The rabbis taught, Arba mishmaros olu min agola. 4 mishmaros, 4 of these families from the rotation came back from the Galus after the first Beis HaMikdash, after the Babylonian Persian exile. For the second Beis HaMikdash, 4 families came back. Ve'elohin, these are the families. Yedaya, Charim, Pashchar, Ve'emar. Those are the 4 families. Amdu Nevi'im Shebeneim. So if you only have 4, you need 24. So what do they do? So the Nevi'im at that time, the prophets, right, is like the last generation of prophets, the beginning of the second Beis HaMikdash. Those prophets got up, and says the Gemara, top of the next page, V'chalkum, and they divided up those 4 families. Ve'amidum al esrim ve'arba. They made them into 24. They took the 4 and made them into 24. Now, it seems that they established an order of these 4 families, but each 4 was now divided into 6. So how do they decide the order of the 6 families from each of these 4 families? So the Gemara explains, Balulum v'nasnu b'kalfi. They mixed up all the names of the different parts of the families, the 6 families from each of these general families. They divided the names and put them in a pot for a lottery. Ba Yedayas, then the first family came, and then in this case Yedaya, who's divided now into 6. V'nata chelko v'chelek chaverav sheish. Yedaya came and took his portion, and he took the 6 portions of his friends, the 5 other ones, and the order that they came out determined the order for each week of which family from the family of Yedaya would serve each of those 6 weeks. Ba'acharim v'nata chalko v'chelik chaveirav sheish. And the same with Charim. He came, he took his portion, he took his, altogether 6, because he took his, the smaller families within his family, he took theirs also. He drew their lots to see the order that each of these 6 families would go. V'chein Pashchar, v'chein Emar. And the same was done by the family of Pashchar, and the same was done by the family of Emar. So each of these 4 families, which are now divided into 6, they each drew lots to decide the order of their 6 subcategories, subfamilies, who were to serve each week in the Beis HaMikdash. V'chein hisim Neviim shebeneim, and the Neviim there, the prophets at the time, they made a condition, they basically made a decree, Sha'afilu Yehoyadiv, or some of a girsa Yehoyariv, even if Yehoyariv, Rosh Mishmaros, who in the original order back in the first Beis HaMikdash was first of the Mishmaros, but he didn't come back, his family didn't return after the exile. Right? Many families remained in Galus. They didn't come back from the diaspora for the building of the second Beis HaMikdash. So his family was one of them. And the Nevi'im who did come back and set up these 4 families and divided them each into 6 to make 24, they said that even if Yehoyariv, who was the first of Mishmaros before, even if he would come back, Lo Yidche Yedaya Mimakomo, he would not push aside Yedaya from his place. Yedaya was first, and it seems that he won't push aside any of these, and he would go last. Elo Yedaya Iker, Yehoyariv Tafel, Yedaya would be the main one, and Yehoyariv would be Tafel, would be secondary to him. I think he would be secondary to all of these families. This was their reward for being the ones, the pioneers, to come back. They were rewarded. They got to go be the Mishmaros, to serve in the Beis HaMikdash, but also, even if other families would come back later, but they would have to wait and go in the end of the line. Now, what they would do is, if you had a Yehoyariv come, let's say, so that if you let them serve, that's going to be 25 Mishmaros. So what do? So they would take one of the 6 and break it and redivide it, so it would only be 5, and then allow this new family that returned to serve. But they wouldn't go before them, they would have to go sort of to the back of the line. Okay, we will pick up here in Mirz Hashem next time.